Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. Today's Catalyst is brought to you by our presenting partner, DRS, Digital Revenue Systems. Educate with elegance. Your facility deserves more than just static. Where screens speak luxury, digital signage deserves to elevate golf, fitness, and wellness experiences. For more information, please go to digitalrevsystems.com. Very excited to get Don Ray, President of the PGA of America, joining us this morning on the Catalyst webinar series. We're going to be asking Don some questions. We reached out over the last couple of weeks and solicited questions from the 5 chapter boards of the Southern California section, as well as the Education Committee members and just some members of influence, as we call them, from the section, to see if they could share some thoughts and some questions that would be relevant to ask Don during our 45-minute session this morning. Good morning, Don. Thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Actually, just was at my golf course for a week looking at this big capital project that we're working on. So felt like a golf pro again, John. I felt like a golf pro instead of a president, which I love both hats, but sometimes it's nice to get back to the golf course.
Certainly, certainly. Well, I know you have the success story at Augusta Ranch. I mean, every time I see you personally, that's really what I want to talk about is how you're driving that business and what Augusta Ranch is doing. And it's really fascinating compared to what it was when you first took over, especially in the areas of technology and the top tracer technology that you introduced there a few years back and what that's done to that facility. So we'll dive right into it. Got a few questions I want to ask. First and foremost, when you're about halfway through, actually you're more than halfway through your presidency, and during the campaign, you had highlighted 3 areas that you wanted to focus on, PGA coach being one of them, mentoring the next level, the next generation of PGA professionals, and legislative advocacy. Can you give yourself a little bit of a progress report on where you are on those 3 areas of focus?
Yeah. Well, let's just start with the one that I'm probably most proud of, and that Nikki Gatz is the chair of. Her and Dale Morgan is the legislative advocacy. I'd all those years being on the NGCOA board and going to National Golf Day and seeing the very small number of PGA professionals that were there. I mean, usually the only PGA professionals were there are ones that maybe had dual membership in the NGCOA or the GCSAA, maybe the CMAA. And now that we've got a committee dedicated to it that is crossing over and connecting with the superintendents, the club managers, the golf course owners. Nikki's done some amazing things. The weekly 5 things to know emails have featured legislative issues. The magazine now is featuring legislative issues. And we continue just, that program of getting down to the sections and having them get there and attack and promote the game of golf, but attack some of those issues that have the unintended consequences of hurting our PGA members or hurting the water to our golf courses or the property taxes or whatever might be happening. So very proud of what Nikki's done. She's certainly led ferociously, I would say, on the legislative advocacy side, and her and Dale are doing great. So I think that's great. I'd like to see those numbers pump up. It doesn't, the PGA, the NGCOA, those golf course owners show up, but they pay their own dime to get there. And then after you get there, it's all set up for you. It's all on an app to see which legislators you're going to visit. And I think it's amazing. So I really encourage any PGA member to not wait to be tapped on the shoulder, but maybe, reach out to Nikki and say, I want to go to National Golf Day and represent the PGA of America or represent my district, my region, or me as a constituent, whether you live in that area or work in that area. When those legislators meet a PGA professional who we are people, it makes a difference. They talk to lobbyists all the time, but they want to talk to constituents. And so I've been happy about that. As far as, the mentorship side, there's certainly a farm system of leadership, right? That was one thing I really wanted to do. I felt like the boards at our sections are definitely at the national level. They're a result of what's happening down at the sections. And we've got to train up our board members from the very bottom up so that they understand their role as a board member and the power they have, whether they're a board member or an officer of that section. And certainly they become district director and now national board member. But understanding the power that the board has when it comes to listening to their committees and those committees making recommendations to change the Constitution That farm system leadership, I'm happy to say, is happening with board span. A lot of sections are using that to train up their boards. And then certainly what the membership committee's done under Doug Doxey and certainly Don New Year of really focusing on this new mentorship hub. Listen, let's be honest, Southern Cal's been killing it in this area. You're one of the few sections that have their own PGA lead program, which I always love talking to them. But other sections needed to step it up a little bit, and we need to lead by example at the PGA of America. And I'm excited what that committee's done. As far as PGA coaching, part of that also was the disintermediation between golf courses and their customers, which that can happen through aggregate websites. And so that direct person-to-person connection happens to a PGA professional. We are the voice of the golfer in the game. We are the tangible connection between most golfers and the game they love. And so they want to be heard. And whether that's on issues that affect national associations or it's just at the local level, the PGA coach is critical. And then I end with that because I think it's the beginning of probably some questions you're going to ask me. I think some say, what's going on with PGA coach? Certainly these 4 committees are dedicated, each one individually in a collaborative effort to make sure that PGA coach is what it should be, which is the future of the PGA of America. AI is coming. Obviously, it's here. You can look at a swing and AI is going to tell you what's wrong with it. I would just suggest to you that WebMD has been around for a long time, and people have been typing in their symptoms for a long time of what's wrong with them medically. And there's probably going to be some website that does that for golf swings. But at the end of the day, there's still doctors out there. There's family doctors that take care of people and know the family history, know how the family dynamics are, know if you quit smoking 10 years ago and things that you're working on. There's always going to be a doctor in the mix. And I think that's what PGA coach is. It's getting on the golf course, doing game assessments so that we learn about people. We learn about the things that they are battling because that helps them in their game. Obviously, we know the game's a mental game. So we want to see what they're doing on the golf course. But ultimately, this is about the person-to-person connection. And we're not just valuable at a facility, we're invaluable. And that's because we build relationships that supersede any type of business plan or marketing strategy. Relationships matter, and I think that's where the power of the PGA is going to be. 32, 33,000, the number keeps increasing of members, associates, and students out there. We've got to encourage them to get back to walking the range, walking the practice tee, walking the putting green, and being on the first tee and playing with them. And if we do that, there is no technology that can displace us or replace us. It'll certainly just enhance what we do.
Well, you make a good point, especially on the subject of advocacy. I mean, it's really all about the relationships. You see this at the food is always better when you know the chef. The golf community is more relevant for the non-golf community when you know your delegation and you know who's representing you at the state and national level. Regarding AI, you touched on that a little bit as well. AI is already helping automate many of our daily tasks. It's feared that it could replace us in a lot of areas like coaching, with students craving numbers and analytics. But in the areas where human skills are paramount, like leadership, people management, organizational structure, and so on, how is the PGA structuring its education and development pathways for both seasoned professionals and the next generation to help us stay relevant and effective in this ever-evolving environment?
Yeah, great question. I think that was really the reason behind me dividing up what was one committee of PGA coach focusing on the website to a 4-pronged approach to making sure that PGA coach is what it's supposed to be in a collaborative effort. And when Eric was elected secretary, we had been on that ADM committee. We helped create the ADM for golf with the Olympic Committee, and working with the Aspen Institute when we came up with ADM. And so I knew Eric, that was big in his heart. He loved growing the game, and so he's done a tremendous job. Of what the video just came out, that I think it went out to everybody on 5 Things to Know. If it didn't, it sits on the PGA of America's Vimeo channel. But your very own Jamie Milligan saying that, listen, we got to get back to playing the game, and how do we get this instruction? It's not necessarily about angles and numbers and stats and spin rates and those things like that. Those are a result of a swing, and certainly that's maybe helps us in a sense of some kind of blood work to fix that swing. But how do we actually get people to play the game, and what do the best instructors do when they're on the golf course? And for that to be filmed right down then, I think Virginia Country Club is where it's at. I think where Jamie's at. But I'm excited about that because that can get deployed to every member. And that's part of the education, that if you didn't make it to the summit, and maybe you watch the videos, but this is hands-on teaching right there on a golf course. So we're super excited about that. One of the committees is basically based on social media. It's got a bunch of influencers on it that are PGA members and aren't PGA members. And David Reasoner is running that committee. I think he's doing a fantastic job. Kathy Harbin, more on the program side, but not on the junior side, on the adult programming. How do we keep these adults in the game or get them off the cart path and onto the course when they're watching PGA Junior League and their kids play or grandkids play? So I think there's an intentional effort on PGA Coach as a tool in all form and facet of it through YouTube channels, education, and then certainly what we have on PGA.coach and PGA.org, but also on Dawes' side when it comes to education and 3.1 and everything that we're doing there. Rest assured, that's all working on behalf. The curriculum's changing now. Remember, before you'd get tests in the totality of what you learned. And so when things changed over a 2 or 3 year span, it was very difficult to test somebody because the information had changed. The world is moving faster than ever. And our education department has stayed with that because of what we're doing with 3.1. So every class is more, I think it's more relative now or relevant now than maybe it was before. So no doubt we're focusing on education and making sure that those who consume it in different ways still enjoy what they're getting.
So, we talk about the ever-changing way that people receive information. You look at the YouTube competition, the fact that many, there's no, it seems that certainly in the instruction side, we're losing the incentive to become PGA members and still be successful, relevant teachers. We're getting to the point now where, it's almost half of the people out there on YouTube that are providing quality instruction aren't PGA members. A lot of PGA Tour players, their instructors are not PGA members. How do we continue to make the PGA certification process attractive to up and coming teachers that already have a foothold on social media platforms?
Yeah, I'll address the solution, but let me give you a little bit more context on the problem. This is the RNA has suggested to the PGA Great Britain and Ireland that community instructors who aren't PGA professionals should be able to teach golf, and obviously that's the whole thing of being a professional golfer is if you're taking money for lessons or play, you're a professional, and so we want to protect that. And PGA GB&I is doing their best, and they've called us in to say, what are you guys doing? And remember when we didn't have that many PGA professionals, attendance was down in our PGA universities. We had this aging membership. Well, we've certainly addressed that because of all the associates and students, in the queue right now. But there is no doubt that when the USJ starts making decisions, and whether that's amateurs getting paid now as kind of a travel reimbursement, or maybe not a gift card anymore, they actually can get a check. They're also talking about there's not enough members to teach the game, and we want to do that. I assure you, some of the conversations that have happened with the rollback of the ball have brought our associations closer to make sure they understand what we do for the handicap. We police, administer, and sell it, and so that should be noted and maybe even remunerated. But also what we do on the instruction side. Bad instruction creates bad golfers, and bad golfers don't play as much, and that means that hurts participation. So we fully understand the gravity that a PGA professional is the very best. And a best instructor teaches students who play better, and people who play better play more. And so that's really what we look at on the National Association. Some of these conversations are tangential to maybe what you and I just talked about, but it's bringing us into the room to explain to the USJ how important PGA professionals are to the growth of the game. And even the PGA Tour. We create viewers, we create spectators. And in a farm-to-table ecosystem approach to the game of golf, it has to be noted that the PGA professional is in charge of the farms. We're the ones who grow the golfers who go out there and play at public and private golf courses and watch golf on television. And then I think certainly, our education of making sure PGA Coach, I'll go back to that, John. When I coached Katie's softball team, the practice was based on what they didn't do in the game. They didn't hit the cutoff man. They didn't lay down a bunt. The first to third drill wasn't done properly. So that's what we practiced in the next practice after that game. How many of our PGA professionals actually watch their students play golf? Whether it's a 4-person scramble or just going out and playing with them or watching them play. A playing lesson doesn't have to be that you're playing. It could just be you watching 4 of your students play and then assessing them and then bringing them into the lunchroom and explaining to them, what they need to get better at. This is the key. I think us building relationships and not doing what people, this is straight out of Will Robbins' book, right? And this is why we brought him in for PGA coach. You can't give them what they want. You got to give them what they need. And we don't know what they need until we see how they play, not how they swing. And so the key is we're going to have all this AI data. We're going to have the TrackMan numbers. Heck, we're going to have the top tracer numbers, which is basically everything but spin. But if we don't see them on the golf course and see what they're doing as they play, then I think our diagnosis is missing some of the most basic aspects of getting somebody better. And that's the future, is utilizing technology, but integrating that with relationship so that we build a game, not a swing.
So how do we bridge that gap between alternative golf experiences like Top Golf, Pop Stroke, and simulator environments and getting those players onto the golf course? Similar to how Drive, Chip, and Putt has done with PGA Junior League or vice versa. What's working right now to convert those participants into on-course golfers?
The PGA professional is working, you know what I mean? Their best. And I think that is something that the PGA of America, we can't ignore something like Phil Lomardino started the Indoor Golf Alliance, right? And this association, basically, this alliance, is just bringing off-course golf, whether that's ranges like Top Golf, or just somebody who has a simulator business at a strip mall and's got 5 simulators and they're growing the game in there. How do you get people onto the green grass? I think that's probably the thing that Top Golf never really managed is could they prove that all these people at Top Golf are actually becoming golfers? I know that we leverage that technology name and that brand at Augusta Ranch because of Top Tracer, but whether it's TrackMan or In Range, I think all of those gamifications are perfect transitional DNA from getting somebody from a virtual golf position or a gamified golf position into actually playing golf. I know Augusta Ranch is doing well with Top Tracer financially, but that wasn't why we built it. It's certainly been a great result, but the reason we built it was to be our own funnel. If there are people going to off-course golf, well, then what actually attracts them to on-course golf? And to us, it was the gamification side of a range. And so that's what I think. I think the PGA of America at the top, we're certainly going to get out there. We're going to educate our members through our education, whether it's Orlando or, whether you're doing it online at pga.org, of the business opportunities that are out there and the ability for Augusta Ranch to reach out to the off-course facilities around me and say, hey, what are you doing? At night, maybe I could send you some customers. Would you send me customers? Could there be a commission structure like we do with our hotels? I think some of these best practices, John, are probably going to come from PGA professionals, and they got to let us know at the sections and at the chapters so that we can bring that up to the big committees and maybe change something from the top. The relationship side of this is going to come from the top down, but the actual best practices and how PGA members can be instrumental in connecting those two is probably going to be from the sections and the chapters, and then we shout from the rooftops of what they did successfully. So I really encourage a section like yours, who's probably solving this right now, is do a webinar on it, just like you're doing now, of some best practice or some case study that we can pass on. And then let's get that to the National Education Committee. Let's get that to the PGA Coach Committee, or let's get that to Dawes Marlotta as he's putting together the curriculum of education now to make sure that the best practices are being told to all those level 2 and level 3 students that are at PGA HQ every week.
So the Top Tracer, particularly in terms of Augusta Ranch, do you see a rounds increase from funneling new people through the Top Tracer technology to playing your golf course, or is the Top Tracer technology and the busyness of that range for people that are already golfers what's driving the rounds? Which one is it?
It's a good question. And technology is not helping me right now. I am putting a lot of pressure on my point of sale tee sheet, which is Sagacity Golf, and they integrate with Toast. But even Sweet Spot, which is the technology we just started using, I'm finding it hard to track people from my restaurant to my range to my first tee. To me, 9% of the population eats, but 9% of the population plays golf, but 100% of them eat. And so if I get somebody in my restaurant, the Scratch Pub and Grill, am I getting them to a gamified range at Buckets, we call it, because it's also a food and beverage venue. So you get this full restaurant, and then you get into the range that has a mini restaurant, Buckets, which is Top Tracer, and then Augusta Ranch Golf Club is the course range. I got to get them on the first tee. We are still trying to figure out, how do I attract somebody that the funnel was the restaurant and that got them to the range, or the funnel was the range and that got them to golf. We got to do a better job of that. And I'm trying to figure it out on my own so that maybe I can shout from the rooftops of like, hey, I figured it out. I'm able to track the golfers. John, I can't do it by rounds because I lean on dynamic pricing, demand-based pricing a lot. There are price-sensitive people, there are time-sensitive people, and we raise our rates based on sagacity and booking curves on a 3-year historical basis. And we regulate our rounds by price. That's it. And so I've been right at around 50,000 rounds. After COVID, before COVID, I was hanging about 43,000 rounds at Augusta Ranch. Now we believe over 50 is too much. So we try to hang out in the 48, 49,000 rounds thing, and we utilize price to do that, knowing that time-sensitive people will pay a higher price. But I still have to have a discount package for my price-sensitive people. So we try to thread that needle. But I'm not measuring it with rounds because I can't. I will tell you I can measure it in smiles. I can tell you I can measure it by walking around the range on a Thursday and Friday and just like we tell our PJ members, right, John? Just like the old days, manage your business by walking around. If you don't have a report in front of you or some survey in front of you, why not do your own? When I walk up and down the range and go, hey, how you doing? Ever been to Augusta Ranch before? 50% of the people say they haven't. I've been there for 20 years. And so you're telling me I'm capturing people that have never been there before? So I know it's working. I just need to be able to track those people through the different revenue streams or departments at Augusta Ranch. But my one-on-one interviews are very clear that Top Tracer is a funnel and it's working.
So with the increased amount of associates signing up nationwide over the last few years, our associate numbers are wonderful. What is the association doing to ensure the number of jobs in the business aligns with the potential increase of PGA members in the coming years?
Oh, good question. Right. I'm happy and proud, what we're doing on the career services side. I think we were kind of a fire department, and I think we're in fire prevention, which makes me feel good. I know that our career consultants are ready now and available when you call them and go, hey, I want to talk about something. I feel like I should make more at my facility, or I'm thinking about moving, or I'm thinking about moving up, wherever I'm at. They can give you good data to tell you if you're being underpaid. They know everybody around you. I think our compensation study has been fabulous, and more members are doing it all the time, which kind of as what I equated to as like an MLS for homes. We want to know what other homes are selling for so that we can sell our home for more. I want to know what other PGA professionals are making so that I can get them to be paid more. A lot of the management companies do a really good job of their own data, but that's proprietary data for their management companies. I think the PGA of America, we're not a union, but we can act a little more like it and make sure that we're going to bat for our members. And I believe we are, John. Career services, they'll tell me, man, the interactions that they have on a yearly basis, I'll get the numbers wrong, but it's well over 18 something thousand a year. I mean, we got 30,000 members, and the unique people that are reaching out to PGA members now, or reaching out to our career consultants, career services department, and player engagement is phenomenal. Increase in compensation. I think the last number I saw was $13 million in increased compensation for PGA members. Average salary for a PGA member is over 100,000. So that's part of it. But then the other part of it, John, I think goes back to PGA coach. I think, when you see a company like Invited and some of the programs that they're doing now, they're assigning a PGA member at their facility, 100 of their members, some at risk, some aren't, and say, why don't you build relationships with these 100 and see if you can get them playing golf more? There is no doubt the most important number at a private club typically is your at-risk members. You don't want to lose them because it's really expensive to get new ones. And so utilizing PGA members, I think Pillsbury doing that and Invited, understanding, like he said in a seminar a long time ago, a PGA member working the counter is like a doctor serving as their own receptionist. I think he's right. I think they're proving it right now that their rates of members leaving their golf courses since they've instituted this program of putting that retention program on the backs of a PGA member, it's working. And then they're paying PGA members to play golf with members because they see the value. They're paying PGA members a residual check when members stay or new members come on. That's proving the value. So I think relationships with all the management companies to take best practices like what Invited is doing and making sure all the management companies know that we believe this is the future, I think is key. And then the other part is really having the second conversation with those management companies are, if we're missing something, please let us know because we want to educate our membership, your employees, to the best of our ability. We believe we are the gold standard at the PGA of America. So if we're not, please let us know. And I'm excited. Some of the early meetings with Terry Clark what's about that is that we've got to build those relationships with the management companies and go, golf tech, with Joe, of all those that employ PGA professionals to make sure that we're not building educational programs in some echo chamber. We're building on what the management or the employee and the NGCOA, by the way, we engage with them too, is what do the employers want so that we're preparing the PGA professionals, their employees, better.
Is that what you say the most critical tangible benefit the PGA of America is committed to delivering to the average PGA professional over the next 1, 3, 5 year time span?
Yeah, I mean, it's at our core. It was in our Constitution in 1916, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Got to grow the game, right? But to grow the game, we need good PG professionals. Once again, that's why an amateur will never do the job that a PG professional can do. There are great amateur instructors, of course there are. There's a few out there, but the greater good of the PGA professional, that's our key, is to make sure that they make a little more money, that they can maybe buy a bigger house, they can send their kids to college. There's only one job of the PGA of America, and that is to make sure the PG of America member, is has a good life and is successful. And if the game is growing, they'll be more successful. And kind of what I said at the annual meeting, right, John? I think I find it interesting. The PG of America didn't start and say, let's get some members. Some PGA members, or they were professional golfers, got together and said, we need to start an association. And that's something the PGA of America and its leaders should never forget. We didn't start this and get a bunch of members. The members created us to serve them and grow the game. And that's why the PGA of America member ultimately owns the PGA of America. It is their association, and it should answer their questions and serve them like it was intended to do in that meeting in New York in 1916.
So, what is the latest on PGA Reach? Do you have an update on that?
I think Terry coming in is, that's the first thing. I mean, one, we need a COO. I think we're fairly close in that decision. We'll see what happens. Terry and I and Nathan and Eric, we meet once a week or every other week, and get together about those things. Some of the first charges of Terry when he got hired is we've got to fill the C-suite. We're missing a lot of people. Jeff Price left to go to the Heisman Foundation, which was great. Now, he's interacting with all these people out there through Heisman, but he knows the DNA of the PGA of America. That helps us. Craig Kessler left. He went to the LPGA as the CEO. That's helping our relationship with them and will certainly help the KPMG, our women's PGA championship. So, some of these people that left, they left for great reasons, which actually just expands and broadens our horizons. But yeah, it's hiring people, and the COO is there. The CMO or the CCO, which is Jeff Price, we need that person. And then certainly an executive director of PJ Reach. Terry's working on that now. And the only update I have is that's the most important thing that we can do right now is make sure that everybody who's got the PJ Hope people out there, and we're serving our members who have questions about their checks, or when am I getting my Opportunity League money, or when am I getting my PJ Hope money? Keeping the trains run on time is critical. That's what a COO does. We need one of those. But when we get the ED of PGA Reach in there, I think you're going to see that exponentially go off. And by the way, that was kind of the strategy. Nathan now chairs the foundation board. We have two separate boards. That was never true. And I've always believed in that concept that there's a C6 board and a C3 board. PGA of America, those boards were the same. But I think there's different motives there in a sense. Both of them serve the PGA member, but one's a trade association, one's a not-for-profit that changes the world through the game of golf. And so Nathan chairing that board, which now has trustees on it, is very important to the future of that. They have their own budget that they approve. That never happened before, John. That excites me. We just approved the PGA Reach budget because it was recommended for approval by the PGA Reach or Foundation board. That's an important leadership change that we did on that. And now Nathan becoming the president in November, he's got a heart for PGA Reach. It started as an acronym in the Gateway section, and now he's going to be president and he's chairing that board. So I am super excited about the future of Reach because I know Nathan's dedicated to it, and I know so is Terry Clark, and getting a good leader for that aspect of our association.
With all the changes at the C-suite level, by and large, would you say they were planned? You saw them coming, you didn't see them coming, they were, positive in nature, or were they reactive? And how does the same type of uh, dynamic changing at the PGA Tour level with their restructuring, with Jay Monahan stepping down as the commissioner and the Brian
Brian
Rowlett
Rollup.
coming in as the CEO and their restructuring. Is there a parallel? And can you speak candidly on that, for lack of a better term, that kind of roller coaster effect?
Yeah. I think I always speak candidly, so you're always going to hear the truth from me, right? I
Yeah.
think, listen, there's no parallel to that. I mean, the tour is the tour. SSG brought in Brian Rolap, Jay Monahan, is kind of phasing himself out, and they've got a CEO now. I think that's an interesting change in title, right? There was a commissioner, now there's a CEO. Brian's from the NFL. He understands what goes on with media rights, the scarcity he talks about on the PGA Tour, dealing with live, all of those things. And then the ball situation has come out, right? He certainly, you can look at the transcript of his interview at the Players Championship to see what he thinks. And we certainly read every line of that transcript. But meanwhile, Terry Clark knows Brian Rolap from many other different aspects of being part of Optum. When Terry worked for Optum at the Players Championship, basically Optum took over the clubhouse there at Sawgrass and made it kind of a Berkman's for their sponsors. That's why I really like the way Terry's brain works. He's thinking about how he can help the PGA of America and ultimately help the PGA member. And he certainly understands the PGA member. So that's exciting. As far as the turnover in the C-suite, no, it's like any business. Some are planned, some aren't. Some people retire. Listen, when we made that decision, what, 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, to move to PGA Frisco, we were, like Seth used to say, trying to move an ice cube, and it was melting on the way. We just closed down the Florida offices. And John, it was sad. There are people who worked in Florida for 30 plus years in the PGA of America. Literally, the bricks of our building of the PGA of America were people who worked down in Florida, and we closed that office. Some don't want to move. And we offered great packages, and some moved to Frisco and some didn't. So March 31st was a very sad day for the PGA of America because we lost a lot of people who put a lot of time and blood and sweat and tears into our members, and they loved the members. And so some of that, was some of what happened in the C-suite. And but like I said, for those who moved on to other industries, that only helps the PGA of America because now they know that the PGA of America is different than the PGA Tour. And I think, and that's where Brian Rolap comes in. I think we've got to educate him a little bit of this farm to table approach that we create spectators and we create viewers. Mark Darbin is the new CEO of the RNA, right? He came in a couple of years ago. Mark understands now who we are and why we do it. And some people didn't know. We've got those good relationships, and I think we'll just continue to build on them. PGA Great Britain and Ireland is looking for a CEO right now. I don't think they've finalized that search, and that's a person we're going to have to talk to. The PGA GBNI is a close friend and ally of obviously all the PGAs in the PGA World Alliance, but certainly the PGA of America because they own a portion of the European Ryder Cup. So it's all very interesting, and I think it's all very healthy. And I think, I think for the first time in a long time, the PGA of America is not just invited to a meeting. We're calling the meetings. And I think every PGA member should be very proud of that we're not waiting for some shoe to drop. We're actually talking to the industry and saying, this is a game that our members grow every day. And we believe we should be the beginning of these conversations. We believe it's our responsibility, John, to be honest with you, to act like leaders. And that's to bring people in the room and call the meetings and make sure that everybody's pulling in the same direction, which should be the game growing.
So with the change from Derek to Terry, does that change or refocus the upcoming TV contract negotiations? And also, does the conversation of our nonprofit status play a role in this? And what is really the long-term plan there?
Well, I mean, when you sign a media rights deal with NBC and CBS, right? The two big people that we do. CBS obviously does the PGA Championship. NBC does all the others. These are long-term agreements. They do both expire 2030, 2029. I think NBC had an ability to extend that agreement if they liked, and so they did it. And that got us past the next Ryder Cup. Media rights are always what drive us, right? We're a not-for-profit because any money that we get, we've got to push out. I mean, that's our job, right? I mean, it's funny, the PGA Championship, the Ryder Cup, and those things at their core, they're fundraisers for us to do good with the money through our members, utilizing and helping our members be successful because when they are, the game grows. So one, yeah, we'll always talk about media rights, and those are coming up, and certain a lot of conversation, about what Brian Rolap sees. He said it in a lot of speeches, but I think nothing's really changed. Derek knew it was important. Terry certainly knows it's important. It's something that controls our budgets. It controls the ADP money that comes down to sections. It comes down to the tier funding that we do to help all the sections out there, and it's well over $100 million. The sections raise $100 million plus on their own. We try to kick down another 100 million to them through different ways, and it's great. But we're always worried about the word annulment, and that's it, and that's okay. One thing to understand about it being a not for profit is there's for profit entities underneath the PGA of America, whether that's PGA Golf Club or the ticket sales or the merchandise sales. These are things that fall under for profit aspects of the PGA of America. But we're a not for profit, which allows us to take a little bit of our money and make the world a better place. And so I think for those who pontificate on and if we should get rid of our for profit status, I guess so. I'm no lawyer and all that stuff. All I know is I'm here to help PGA members, and that's why I raised my hand to try to be in that room, and promote and defend the PGA profession, just like every board of directors does. But I think that we should relish the fact that we're a not for profit, because you know what happens inevitably. If you're a for profit company, then you worry about profit. If you're a not for profit company, you worry about passion and changing people's lives. And there's a small little thing there that I think is really important. And at our core, knowing that we're truly a not for profit is kind of where we should be, because all we want is for people to play a little bit better. We love this game, right? That's our new slogan, John. But I'm pretty sure we love the people who love this game a little bit more. And that little love story, I think, is the essence of why we're the ones who should be calling these meetings, because the only skin in the game we have is for the game to increase on the backs of our members. And that's a great mission. And that's what makes us different. Yeah.
So Don, there's every time we speak, there's always one or two things that you say. I mean, obviously you speak extemporaneously, and you share a wealth of information, and of course, people take away two, three things from these conversations. And what you just said, I think, is what's going to resonate with me about the difference between a for-profit and a not-for-profit, focusing on passion. Thank you for that. The concept, the topic of selling the Ryder Cup, that's always kind of been around, and it seemed like it kind of died down a little bit, and it wasn't the most popular thought. Do you think after, and then we don't want to get into a lot of the ins and outs of this last Ryder Cup, but do you think that this last Ryder Cup has reignited the topic of maybe selling it one day?
No, I don't see that happen. I mean, some people call it an asset. I don't look at it that way. It's an heirloom. Samuel Ryder, that deed of trust that's with the original Ryder Cup that sits in a safe in London, right? I mean, the one we give to the players is exactly like the one that's in the safe. But that deed of trust sits there, and that's because Samuel Ryder said, I want to hold an annual or every other year competition to celebrate the game and celebrate two countries dedicated to the game, and now that includes Europe, right? So I don't think it's ours to sell in a certain sense. You know what I mean? I think we certainly use it to make the world a better place with the game of golf and through PGA REITs and our PGA members, and that's what we should be doing. We never talked about that. No CEO or officer or board of directors ever gone to the microphone and said any of that stuff about the Ryder Cup and selling it. Once again, I think it's an heirloom, not an asset. And are there things in relationships that we can put together to enhance the experience of everybody who plays in it and everybody who shows up to watch them play? Certainly, we'll always look at relationships to make sure that we do a better job. I think Kerry Haig did an amazing job, at the annual meeting, explaining some of the things that we looked at and things that we can improve upon. I think just like any of us that are member guests, it's a really important event. and you do your best and things happen. But then you have a meeting after the member gets to go, what can we do next year? And how can we make this a little bit better? PGA of America is no different. We're run by PGA professionals. We hire executives to run our association because we have day jobs. And that's a great thing. And I think Terry Clark, when we talked to him over this extensive process of hiring this new CEO, it might have been a faster timeline than people liked, but I can tell you it was not short on extensiveness. These are the core, uh, I'd say, characteristics of Kerry to understand what the Ryder Cup means to the PGA of America and actually what it means to the game of golf. So there's no selling of that. Once again, we've got to take care of that and make sure it does what it's supposed to do, which is bring the world together and celebrate a game on a global stage.
So you touched on how quickly Terry kind of came into the fold. Can you talk about the dynamic interview process that took place? Obviously, Derek's took like 8 or 9 months, it seemed, maybe 6 to 9 months, and then Terry seemed to be overnight. What can you share about the two processes, and what did you take away from it all?
Well, it wasn't overnight. I can promise you, when Derek told us at the beginning of December, that he was going to step away for his family, and we just didn't announce it until the beginning of January. Believe me, the board and officers were engaged immediately. Now, don't forget, we just did this a year before, so we had names. We knew the type of people. We knew what we were looking for. I was on that committee. John Linder was on that committee. Nathan was on that committee, as well as some current board members. So all of that intel we had. All we had to do was open up the folder because it was only a short time ago, so that we looked at it. So we certainly knew the names, and we knew what we wanted. And I think when Terry's name surfaced very quickly because of how he acts, how he thinks, how he feels, he quickly became the number one prospect of it. And it was like, okay, how do we get this done with Terry? But we certainly looked at all the other candidates, from the first search. So
Was Terry part of the original search when we hired
no,
Derek?
no, he wasn't, because he just got on the board, right, as independent director. We had just named him to fill Andrea's spot as an independent. So no, he hadn't applied. And we approached him and said, "What do you think? We think you could be great." And then the process started. But it might have seemed like a lot. I mean, I think the hours are the hours. Now, are the hours spread out over months, or are they spread over days? In this situation, the hours were the hours. I can assure you, because from December 1 to the end of January, I didn't sleep much. Nathan and Eric didn't sleep much because we were grinding on behalf of the PGA of America and our members to get to the CEO in place. And thank goodness for Kerry Haig. He's amazing. Did a fabulous job as interim CEO. But the process, people are judging by months, but judge it by hours, because I can assure you the same amount of hours went into the decision. It just wasn't spread out over months. It was spread out over days.
So do you think the PGA should partner with the USGA on the U.S. National Development Team with the goal of developing our elite juniors for college, the Tour, Ryder Cup? Currently, the U.S. National Team member Asterisk Tally, currently leading the ANWA and played well in her last LPGA Tour event, could be an opportunity to work together with the USGA. I mean, Asterisk is from California.
She is, and I'm pretty sure she won our the girls' side of our junior PGA championship. I think I was there. I don't know if I gave her the. She finished well there. I remember seeing her when I was there in Purdue. But yeah, those are amazing things. We already do. There is no doubt. A PGA member doesn't run that program, but they are working with section directors now to make sure that that program is represented. That USGA program actually has grants that they can give to PGA professionals to help their own programs to generate more kids to get them onto that team. So I think we can do more. I know that's certainly something I talked to Mike Wan about. I know Nathan is talking to Kevin Hammer, the new president, who is the son of a PGA professional. Lori Hammer, a very well-known and awesome PGA golf professional. So Kevin Hammer knows the power of a PGA professional, and every great player in the world is powered by PGA professionals, in my opinion. Whether it's Patrick Cantlay or Asterix, I mean, they all have PGA professionals behind that. So I think we can do more, and I know they're open for more. Once again, those conversations about the rollback created a greater good conversation of what can we do better together. of all the different things that they do and we do, there's things that we should be cross-pollinating. So I think you'll see more of that as they beta tested these relationships with our sections. And there'll be, I think, more PGA members really pushed into how that program is identifying our best players. So more to come on that. And that's one thing, I really love about Terry. He's just a relationship builder. He's a good soul. And I think that's going to help us in these discussions with all of our allied associations to make sure that, once again, we're leading this game of golf and calling the meetings instead of waiting to be called.
So we talk about the strengths of Terry, the strength and the relationship connection of Craig Kessler going from our association over to the LPGA Tour. Do you think that this is all going to pave the way for the PGA to create more of an equal playing opportunity for women? As you know, as we all know, male PGA members have the PGA Tour Championship and local PGA Tour exemptions when playing well at the section and national level. Women PGA members really don't have that opportunity for good play at the section or national level. They've got the KPMG. It's the only tour opportunity through, the LPGA Tour's 8 spots and the PGA's 1 spot. But do you think there's opportunity by strengthening the relationship with the LPGA Tour to get more female PGA professional opportunities to play on their level?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you were listening in on
I
a call
think
or
I
something,
think I
John.
think I think you know where that question came from.
Yeah, no, and hey, she's right. No doubt about it. I think putting Marvel Bernard on our board of directors, and a lot of people probably don't know that because we haven't done the press release yet. But typically, when our at-large PGA, when our at-large board of director came on, they didn't really shadow very long, and I thought that was a little unfair. So Marvel Bernard will be on the PGA of America's board of directors starting in November. She's an incoming board of director from the at-large position right now, and her being the president of the LPGA, a dual member. Dual is cool, like she likes to say. I think that is an intentional effort by the PGA of America to make sure that all the information coming into boardroom and voted on is as diverse as it possibly can. So I think, yeah, with Craig, certainly playing opportunities. When you see what Sandra's doing, I mean, when she's won some events. I think the Women's Cup team is super exciting. I mean, I wish PGA members could be in that room. God bless Susie Whaley. She pushed hard for, you would ask any male PGA golf professional their experience at the PGA Cup, and they would say it was the greatest experience of their life. But yet, women really didn't have that opportunity. We've now created that. It's a little different format because the PGA Cup is just us against PGA GB&I. PGA Women's Cup team is us against the world. It's almost like a college event. And if you could see the fundraising that's happening in South Africa or Sweden for them to get their teams and get the money to go to the PGA Cup event that we started, that Susie spearheaded, you should be very excited about that. So I think whether it's PGA Women's Cup, which we'll do more on, I think sections doing more of having their own championships for women in their sections, that's paramount to our success. We can only do so much from the top down. But us doing our part on the national level with Craig Kessler, not the California Craig Kessler, but the Craig Kessler who's still in Texas, and Terry working with them. We're very proud of the KPMG. I think sometimes they looked at our budget and said, wow, we lose money on the KPMG. Well, why not? Why wouldn't we invest in things that grow the game? Once again, we're a not-for-profit. So if we're losing things that grow the mission, just like a church, aren't we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Isn't that our lot in life? So to say, well, the KPMG should make money, yeah, maybe, but I'm not concerned that it loses money if it's doing what we want it to do. And their leadership summit they do that week, KPMG leaning in on opportunity leagues, KPMG leaning in on the purse so that it increases. And now Craig Kessler also joining and understand who we are at our core, I think is only going to enhance the game. And once again, one of those ways that we have to lead by example and not wait for people to call some committee together, and the PJ's part of it. PJ's got to call that committee and say, hey, other associations, let's step this up. And I think we're just the very beginning of something that's going to make a lot of women proud.
So Don, we are very grateful for your time this morning. Thank you so much. You've been on the Catalyst webinar series. I think this is the third time in the last 5 or 6 years. So we're really grateful for you carving out a piece of your morning to come and join us. One final thought: who are you rooting for?
The PGA professional. I mean, what? I mean, seriously. And one, thanks for that. What, 81 names that are on there? That's amazing. I've been to section meetings that didn't have that many people on it, so I appreciate everybody carving out their time here. It's interesting the way you asked the question because truly, I I love the member side of our association. I love it. And I love being at Augusta Ranch. And I love to see the 5 associates that are there and they're grinding because they want to be a PGA member someday. And I think that's who I'm rooting for. If these other associations, John, they have to understand that we love the people who love golf more than we love it ourselves, right? And that we're all about love, and that's why we're not for profit. I'm rooting for the PGA professional, and those that reach out to me and say, "Hey, Don, can you fix this?" or "What do you think about that?" My door's open even when it's closed, and I mean that. Because I believe through the committees or through your national governance or national officers or social or section and chapter officers, um, man, when you raise your right hand to get in that room and start voting on behalf of your fellow members, if you're not pulling for the PGA professional, then you might be in that room for the wrong reasons. And I know that every member I've talked to who's served with me, alongside me, and all levels, they always cared more about the PGA professional, their fellow PGA professional, than themselves. And that's why we're great. That's just why we're the best.
Don, thank you so much. And for all the section members that are on this morning's webcast, the 81 PGA members that joined us this morning, you will get 1 PDR credit for joining us this morning and hearing Don. And Don, thank you so much. That's all the questions we have today. Thank you so much for supporting the Catalyst webinar series, and we'll see you out there. Thank you, sir.
Well, my pleasure. My pleasure.